Good morning, or I should say good afternoon. Welcome. I'm really excited today to introduce Cheyenne Eisenhut, who will be sharing about her experiences with her disability and also the use of a service dog. I'm going to first introduce Katie Flowers, our esteemed director of the Center for Civic Engagement and Service Learning, who's going to share a little bit about the story of how today happened. Let's give Katie an L.
In January, I received an email from Cheyenne. We hadn't had the opportunity to meet before, and she knew that in our role in the community outreach office that we have the opportunity to connect students with community partners and community partners to students, and she wondered if she might be able to share her story. And it's through those meetings that I had the absolute pleasure of getting to know her and Koda, and what a joy those visits were, and I hope they keep going, and they better, Cheyenne. And it's so exciting to think that the response that we've received is so wonderful, and equally, I think, no surprise to those of us that know Cheyenne, she's willing to share this presentation to local schools and community groups, so this is just the beginning for her, and I couldn't be more proud to be one stop along this journey. So turn it back to you, Mary, and then we'll get on our way. Good luck, Cheyenne.
So Cheyenne comes to us from the other side of Syracuse. I believe we have some folks from the Syracuse area here today. Yeah, so Cheyenne comes from east of Geneva. She's a first year here, and so she's brave enough and just thoughtful enough to agree to come here today and share her story, and I think that that's really powerful to step forward and say, these are my experiences, this is my life, and this is something that is important to me, and this is something that I can teach you. And so we're going to hear from Cheyenne and some of the wisdom that she is able to share with us today. She wants to let you know that sometimes there's aspects about her story that might be difficult for you, and maybe something you might find uncomfortable, something that maybe just doesn't, you might need a break. And so she wants you to please feel free that if you need a break or you need to step outside and take a moment, please do. And if you get tired and you're sitting down and you want to stretch, it's okay to go ahead and stretch and be in the back of the room or to take a moment. And she really wants to encourage you to be comfortable today and to spend some time with her, but also take care of yourself. So Cheyenne, we're so excited to hear you today, so let's give her a big hand.
Hi guys, I hope you can hear me. Not listening. Alright, so my name is Cheyenne, and this is my Koda. This is my service dog, Koda. And I'm just going to show you some tricks that she does. Koda, sit. Sit. She's a little nervous, so come on. Sit. Good girl. She loves cucumbers and carrots. Down. Good girl. Sit. Yes. And then one last one I'm going to show you is I'll explain it once I do it. Smell. Good girl. Sorry. Smell. Paw. Paw. Yes, good girl! So what I just showed you is one of Koda's tasks for me, and this is just a regular cotton ball. And this one in this bag is actually a cotton ball that I had to soak in my saliva, which sounds really disgusting, but I had to do that because when I have an anxiety attack or a panic attack, my cortisol levels and my heartbeat increase, and she is able to detect that and alert me to that. So when you saw her smell it and then I told her to paw, that's how she alerts me, is she paws towards me. And that's just how I wanted to kind of start this information here. In this presentation, I talk about my invisible illness, but then I also talk about my guardian angel at work, it'll include my story, like my diagnosis, how I got Koda, and my therapy. And then it also, this is a very discussion-based presentation, so you guys are more than welcome to raise your hands at any time to ask me any questions. Also, I do have like some education stuff, like what a service dog is and the differences between a service dog and ESA and a therapy dog. And then also what's next coming into my life. So this is me when I was like 10 and 13. I was like very geeky, kind of. But, yeah. So the reason I put these pictures up here was because on the left side, that is me at, I think, 12 years old. And as you can tell, my parents are together. I have a little brother. We're very happy. We live in the country. I grew up in a very nice family. My parents have always supported me. They've had me do so many activities that I was interested in. They've always been there to support me and try those things out. But at this time, when I was 12 years old, I was actually very depressed, and I was thinking about suicide and everything else at 12 years old. And if you can just imagine, you can't really imagine a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old thinking those things, but I wasn't happy. And that was before I was diagnosed. And then to the right that's my younger brother and I, we were on a cruise ship. That was after I was diagnosed with severe social anxiety and severe panic disorder. I had to go to a couple doctors because my parents were really concerned about me, and they diagnosed me, and my parents were kind of in disbelief that their daughter could have something so serious, and especially for a 12, 13-year-old. So the right picture is of when I was actually diagnosed, and even in that picture, I'm smiling in both of them. I really was not happy with my life. And honestly, the only thing that kept me alive was because of my little brother. He means the world to me, and I could not imagine him growing up without me. And just to go along with all that, it wasn't like I was isolated in my room or anything. I was in many, many activities through school and in sports. For example, the left picture up on the top, I was in swing choir, so we would sing and dance. The bottom picture, I was in musicals ever since I was in 7th grade. I was also in marching band, and I was a figure skater since I was 8 years old. So it's not like I was isolated or depressed because I didn't have any friends. I was in all these things, I just wasn't happy. And this was a way for me to cope and to not be isolated, was to be in all these activities. So once I started therapy, I started psychotherapy as soon as I was diagnosed, so at 13, and I had psychotherapy up until pretty much I was 17, up until college. And a big thing about my psychotherapy was actually that the first person I went to, I did not like. I was actually very discouraged, and I just didn't feel comfortable talking to him. I just felt weird, and I felt crazy. I didn't feel normal. And so I kind of gave up on that, and I was very discouraged, and I didn't want to go to therapy again. Well, a couple months after that, I did find a really good psychotherapist that I felt comfortable enough to go to and to share my story, and to really work out with all of my disabilities and my issues. And because of her, that's how I am able to go to college now, because I did not know how to deal with everything. I did not even know how to do step one. And she was able to be there, and it wasn't like a regular therapy appointment where you go and you talk and they listen. She would give me feedback, and she would talk to me, and she'd be like, okay, well, why do you feel that way? What situation were you in? Like, was it the smell? Was it the people? Was it the place? Was it the way the room was? And so she really started to make me think about everything that was going on in my head, and started to make me think of them in increments instead of as a whole picture. And to me, that actually really helped me in a lot of ways, because it was like reconstructing your mind on how to think about a situation. And something that was really big with her was self-love, because during that time while I was in therapy, I constantly had to take tests on my self-confidence and my self-worth and all of that. But they weren't like regular tests where you just take a test and you get a high grade or a low grade. It was actually something where you had to be completely honest and tell your full opinion. And then if you had a low grade, that meant that you were more confident. If you had a high grade, that was actually worse. So it was a different sort of perspective of how you're used to grades in school and in college, where you know that a high grade means you're doing really well in class. Well, here it meant that a low grade meant that you were getting better. And it took me a long time to actually be able to start going down on my levels of my grades because I just didn't see myself as someone that was worth it. And so like I said, a big part of my therapy was self-love and self-confidence. And at that time when I was in therapy, I did look at this artist a lot. Her name is Christina Webb. And she painted and drew a lot of inspiring art. These are two of her artists, two of her drawings that I remember looking at. And one of them, as you can tell on the left, it says, "I need to be skinnier," and then it has that crossed out and said, "Love myself." And to me, that really spoke to me when I was younger, because when I was younger, everyone was kind of dealing with, you need to be skinnier, you need to be a certain weight or a certain height. And that can be very detrimental on like a 13, 14-year-old girl or boy who's growing up like that. So for me to look at that, it made me realize that I don't need to be anything for anyone else. I need to be something for myself, and I need to love myself. So that meant a lot to me because I didn't see myself as beautiful. I didn't see myself as anything. Like, I honestly just saw myself as worthless. And to me, that really kind of spoke to me when I was younger, because I was able to realize it doesn't matter what society thinks about you and how they view you. It matters how you view yourself. So after therapy, so I was in therapy until 17, like I said. And after a while, after taking medications and everything, it just wasn't working. I wasn't getting the progress that my parents were looking for and the progress that my therapist was looking for. But that's okay. You don't have to, I just want to make that point, is that's okay. It takes time. People think that when you go to therapy, you only go for a couple sessions and you're fine. And that's how it works. And that's not how it works. I mean, for example, I've gone to therapy for like 4 years, and I still have to go to therapy. And that's okay, as long as you are getting better and you're getting better every time or over a long period of time, that's fine. And so at this time, I was taking medication, and it wasn't getting the effects that my parents wanted, and they were very concerned for my high school career and for college, because I did want to go to college, but I was very nervous that I wasn't going to be able to. And so at that time, I started looking up about service dogs. And I actually found out that I was eligible for a service dog, and I looked up a lot of information before before consulting with my doctors and my psychotherapist. And once I did, I just told them that I said, "Do you think that a service dog would suit me and benefit me?" And the first thing they asked me was like, "What would your goal be with having a service dog?" And I said, "Well, my goal would be to get my independence back and to not rely on medication and to be able to go to these places and all of that sort of jazz." So they actually agreed, and they thought that a service dog would be a really good opportunity for me. And they thought that it would have greater benefits for me than taking more dosages of medicine. And so at 15, I was able to get Koda, and the attention I got Koda for was a service dog, so this was a year before I got Koda. I actually knew that I wanted her as a service dog. And so when I got Koda, that was the intention. So this is her picture when she was a puppy. This is the day after we got her. And she has given me so much more independence, not just in being able to go places, but in general. I would wake up at 6:30 in the morning before school and train her. I would train her for 30 minutes. And then I'd go to school and I'd come back and train her again. So it was something that I woke up for in the morning. I had something to wake up for because I knew she was relying on me and I was going to be able to rely on her. So I wanted to be able to be there for her because I knew she was going to be able to be there for me when she got older. And she really changed my whole view on everything. It was very difficult, but it was also it was a huge learning experience for me to train her. And she really increased my confidence, even from just training her. Not even going out with places, not even doing any of that, just training her in the morning and seeing her progress gave me more confidence in myself because I saw that she was going to be able to do something for me. And everything like that. So she got me more into hiking, like at the upper left-hand corner. I was very nervous to hike. I didn't have the energy. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to be isolated in my house. And so she got me back into hiking. And last May, I also ran the Danny Martin Mud Run, which is something in Deansboro, New York. And we raised money for a lot of the families from the San Diego school shooting, because Daniel Martin's family was originally from Deansboro. And she was the first dog to run in the mud run, and she also gave me the courage to keep running, because it's actually really funny that I had her off leash the whole time, but she stays next to me. And a lot of the people were like, oh, you can't let a dog beat you, and like stuff like that. And that really got me encouraged, and that really got a lot of other people encouraged to keep running and to keep going. But I would have never been able to do something like that. I would have never been able to be in a race with over 1,000 people where you're muddy and helping everyone over things. And she gave me that opportunity to do so. So like I said, Koda is my service dog. But what is a service dog exactly? Not a lot of people know, because service dog gets thrown around a lot. So a service dog is specifically trained to perform task work that mitigate a handler's disability. So, for example, there are all different types of service dogs. Some examples of task work is alerting. So, like how you saw in the beginning with Koda pawing at me when she smelled the cotton ball, she was alerting to my cortisol levels. So they can alert to cortisol levels, heart rate. There's a lot of seizure alert dogs. There's also blood sugar dogs, so diabetic service dogs. Sorry, it's supposed to be blood sugar, not blood pressure. And everything like that. They're there for interrupting behaviors, alerting, mobility, and everything else. It can be anything under the sun, really. And there are multi-purpose service dogs. So the most common service dog that you've probably seen is a guide dog, and those are for people who are blind. But there are all different types of service dogs. Like I said, there's like Koda's medical alert is what I call her. But then there's also diabetic, seizure alert, and everything like that. Now, some are specifically trained to open up doors and to do all of that, while others are trained just for medical alert and for seizure alert. And it matters on who they're with and everything like that. However, the person has to have a disability that limits them to daily things that they can't do. That's why a lot of service dogs can turn on lights and put groceries away and grab water and help with mobility, because those people can't do those things during the day. They're not physically able to do it, or they're not mentally able to do it. And also, service dogs are seen as medical equipment, just like how you see a wheelchair or a cane or anything like that, because that service dog is trained in a task work that the dog doesn't normally know how to do. So comfort, obviously, is something that a dog already knows how to do. How many people have dogs or cats that cuddle with them at night? Yeah. So that's something that your dog already has in them. Dog or cat already wants to cuddle with you, and they have that love. However, you have to train them how to open doors and do all of that. And so that's not a normal thing for a dog to know. And also, it can take up to almost 2 years to fully train a service dog, or longer. So Koda is actually 2, and she is not fully done yet. I do consider her fully trained in the fact that I can bring her out and she's going to act the way she's supposed to act. However, she is not fully trained in her medical alert because she's not solid in it, which means, like, as you can tell when I did the cotton ball, I had to tell her paw. So she doesn't automatically do it. Sometimes she does, but sometimes she forgets and she'll just kind of stare at me. So we're still working on that, on cementing that task work. But it can take, like I said, upwards of 2 years to fully train, or it can take a little longer depending on how many different tasks you have to teach the dog. So a lot of people tend to ask me like what is labeled as a disability to obtain a service dog. So I compiled a list of disabilities that you can get a service dog with, like deafness, blindness, autism, epilepsy, diabetes, life-threatening allergies, which is true. You can get a service dog for life-threatening allergies, like if you're allergic to airborne peanut butter or something like that, you can get a dog for that. Or something that is airborne and that's life-threatening, you can get a service dog for that, so that they can alert you to when they smell that certain allergen. They also dogs for mobility, so as you can tell, like for pulling wheelchairs or for walking upstairs or anything like that. Neuromuscular diseases, which is also under mobility. Also severely limiting psychiatric conditions. The reason I put that in bold is because a lot of people don't realize that. So, for example, there are PTSD service dogs, but people don't realize that there can be service dogs for psychiatric symptoms that are severe. So, like, that's what I have coded for, is I have severely limiting psychiatric conditions that I'm not able to go out with my day and be completely fine. I can't go to the grocery store. Like most of you can just walk into the grocery store, grab something and walk out. I can walk into a grocery store, have a panic attack, and pass out. And that can be very dangerous because I can hit my head. It also can send me to the hospital and everything like that. So Koda is there to allow me to be able to go to the grocery store and to be able to do all that. And so I have to rely on Koda to be able to know my health. And then there's also many other disabilities that are under to obtain a service dog. But in the thought bubble, I also said some disabilities, such as neurological disorders or cardiac conditions, are invisible. So the reason I said that is because, like my title, I said my invisible illness. Because you look at me, and I look completely fine. I look completely able and cognitive, and very high functioning. However, you can't just make an assumption on the way someone looks. Yes, you can tell if someone's disabled by having a cane or a wheelchair or anything like that, but someone who's sitting next to you could be disabled too, even though they don't seem like there's anything wrong with them, because it can be an invisible disability. So something else that Koda's really helped me with is I had a really hard time with going skating for a long time and really doing everything like that. And she's given me my independence that I thought I was never going to be able to have. For example, like I said, I didn't know I was going to be able to graduate high school, let alone come to college. I didn't know I was going to be able to go to a hockey game or travel or anything like that. And so the left picture is of me graduating. And obviously, Koda looks like she got the diploma. Yeah. She was a little more excited than I was, which was kind of funny. But I didn't know I was going to be able to graduate high school. And she gave me that opportunity. Also, with my skating career was slowly dwindling because I was able to get on the ice with all those ice skaters and be able to do my moves and really do what I love. And now I'm able to bring her and she's able to sit in the box. And I keep the door open and she'll sit there, and when she needs to alert me, she will either intently look at me or she'll run on the ice if I don't listen. And she'll run on the ice and be like, Mom, I told you. You have something wrong with you, stop.